Hello, I'm Professor Patrick McGorry. Welcome to today's webinar. Before we proceed, as Executive Director of Orygen, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we work around Australia and pay my respects to elders both past and present.
Thank you for joining our webinar, Strategies for Working with Young People with Additional Speech, Language and Communication Needs. Just to give you a bit of background as to who we are, my name is Chantal Edlington and I'm the Discipline Senior Speech Pathologist at Monash Health's Mental Health Program. I've worked in mental health for around about 10 years and have worked in both inpatient and community mental health settings as a mental health clinician.
Hi, I'm Laura Kerr and I'm a mental health clinician and speech pathologist with Monash Health's Early in Life Mental Health Service. I've worked in psychiatric inpatient and group mental health settings, as well as forensic and forensic mental health settings over the past 10 years in both generic mental health clinician and discipline-specific speech pathology roles.
So if you're watching this webinar, you're most likely a clinician who is working with a young person with a communication disorder. Considering the high rates of comorbidity of speech, language and communication needs in the people with mental illness that was highlighted in webinar 1, chances are in fact that there will be more than one young person on your caseload at any one time who is experiencing speech, language and communication difficulties. The objectives of this webinar are to provide you with strategies you can add to your clinical toolkit to assist your work with young people who have speech, language and communication needs, to provide you with a variety of examples of visual aids you can adapt to your own needs, to demonstrate how some of these strategies, particularly certain visual aids, can be applied during a psychotherapy session, and to feel more confident in working with young people with communication difficulties. Here is an example of an explanation that was provided to a young person in a mental health setting that does not contain long words, jargon or acronyms, however, is still complex because the young person is required to undertake a number of communication tasks associated with it. The young person,
That's okay, I'll read it out. It is in our experience that young people, like yourself, struggle with understanding their emotions and therefore find it difficult identifying ways to cope because of their experiences growing up. However, that doesn't mean there's no hope because we found lots of ways to help young people with their problems.
the young person in this example would have been required to listen, concentrate, store information, understand a very long sentence, recognise that the person saying all of this is doing so with good intentions, understand conjunctions and clauses, deal with the emotional content of the words and their meaning, understand intent and meaning by interpreting the person's tone of voice and body language, and then they would have been required to respond appropriately. The golden rule for working with young people with mental health difficulties should always be assume they understand far less than you think. Check and even double check by erring on the side of caution when it comes to their understanding. And if in doubt, it's always worthwhile referring to a speech pathologist for a full assessment. Considering speech, language and communication is the cornerstone of all therapeutic work, it is essential that speech, language and communication needs are identified and addressed. Webinar 1 outlined how you can identify speech, language and communication needs in your clients and the importance of differential diagnosis. And in this webinar, we will start to show you how to use strategies, particularly visual aids, to increase the effectiveness of your verbally mediated therapy sessions. Webinar 3 will continue on this theme. Now let's consider you are in a room with a young person who may have communication difficulties, diagnosed or otherwise. What are some of the best ways you can help them understand what you are saying and allow them to be able to communicate with you? After all, psychotherapy is verbally mediated and communication dependent. Therefore, without effective communication, psychotherapy will fail or at least have limited impact. Here are some of the key strategies. Minimize distractions and make sure you have their attention before you speak. Slow down your rate of speech. Avoid jargon and acronyms. Use short, simple, everyday words. Repeat key points in different ways. Give step-by-step instructions. Stop after each key paragraph and ask the young person to repeat back in their own words what you have just said and check their understanding. And make sure you always use the active tense. Some more things that you can do right away would be to provide examples that are relatable to the young person. For example, if you're talking to them about good self-esteem, you might give the example that Kanye West is a person who has very good self-esteem. Try to avoid abstract concepts whenever possible. For example, instead of saying, "Are you feeling anxious?" maybe you might say, "Do you sometimes feel sick in the tummy?" which is more concrete and more tangible for the young person. Write down any key points or words if you know they have adequate reading skills that they can take away later and look at. Use visual communication tools whenever possible. Allow the young person time to speak. Don't be afraid of silence at first. Sometimes it's just that extra second that allows them to gather their thoughts and be able to tell you how they feel. Actively work to build up their emotional vocabulary so they can put words to their feelings. This could include providing clients with key phrases that assist them to be able to express how they feel. Visual communication tools. These provide a scaffold for verbal communication and help increase comprehension. It is amazing how much more can be remembered if it is tagged to an image. Examples include comic strip conversations by Carol Gray, which are stick figures with thinking and talking bubbles that utilize colors to represent emotions. Emotion charts or feeling cards, presenting information using flowcharts, arrows and text boxes, color-coded safety management plans, and more formal systems such as the zones of regulation and talking mats. For some of you, you may be thinking this is easy, while for others it may seem impossible. What we'd suggest is that you focus on being mindful of the language you use in sessions initially, and trying just one or more of these strategies at a time until they feel more natural before adding in any additional ones.
So now we'll show you some examples of these visual tools before attempting to perform a basic interview using some of the strategies that we mentioned and pointing out what we are doing as we go along. So here is an example of when a comic strip conversation has been used to review a critical incident. Many young people with communication problems have trouble recounting an event, and using a system of visuals can help them understand what happened, the sequence of events, and what could be done differently in the future. We will show you later how you can use comic strip conversations in a mental health intervention session. And we might just read out this little comic strip conversation for fun.
Hey, who wants to play taps?
Can I play too?
No, you can't. You don't know how.
I do too. I played this before.
No, you can't play. You don't know how. So go away, you loser.
No one ever lets me play. It's not fair. Who cares? All right, so this visual cue here is a cause and effect flowchart that uses boxes and arrows and keywords. We'll show you how this can work in practice later during our role play. This is an example of a feelings chart. Many mental health clinicians use these already. They're good because you can simplify them or add to them depending on your client's language abilities. As a general rule, it's best not to have too many options at once, particularly if a young person has speech, language and communication needs. You can start with the main ones or the ones that are most relevant to the client. These sorts of charts are often used with children, but can really help a young person express how they're feeling if they have speech language communication needs, or even just a poor emotion vocabulary. All right, these ones are some cards. Just hold there a moment. Okay, so these are from a little box. You're probably familiar with a similar sort of concept. We just have some cards here that I've then photocopied. and that can sort of be used as a bit of a feelings chart, or you can lay the cards out and get the young people to choose which one they identify with. You can also photocopy them, laminate them, and even put them on a little piece of string that they might be able to keep in their pocket or keep with them, so that when they are distressed and they may not be able to access the language to describe how they're feeling, they can use the cards instead. This is an example of a feelings thermometer, or another type of feelings chart, I guess. And this is something that you can use during your sessions as well. So it contains different cues. So we've got numbers, colours, describing words, as well as the picture. And different cues will resonate with different clients at different times. So it's good to have all the options there. They might say, oh, I'm feeling number 2 today, or I'm feeling really angry, or I'm feeling really red. This chart is another version of the similar sort of chart. Again, it's got the colours, the numbers, the words. So there's some things there the client can choose from. This next one is an example of a crisis or safety management plan that has been formatted for easy reading and reference. It's been kept to one page to suit keeping it on the fridge, for example, a little refrigerator cheat sheet. Or it also allows you the ability to take a photo of it during your session, or your client can take a photo of it. And this could complement a more comprehensive or thorough safety plan. This one is a safety management plan that was developed for someone with an intellectual disability. You've noticed we've added some pictures in case there are some reading or comprehension difficulties as well. Even for the more complex clients, we can still use visuals that are easy to follow, which is particularly important when a client is in a heightened or distressed state. You could even colour code these if you wanted to, or highlight certain parts. We've done this on the computer. However, one similar could be devised using a paper and pen, and that's often when they are devised actually during a session or a meeting with the client to come up with their safety plan.
This one's similar to the concept of zones of regulation, which you might be familiar with. We have different parts of it. At the top you can see where it says lost it. We can think about, what does a young person see, hear, feel or remember when they're in this zone? For example, a young person experiencing psychosis might hear command hallucinations when they're in the lost it zone, whereas a person with PTSD might get flashbacks. So this tool can be a really great way of exploring and building self-awareness. Prompt cards that someone with speech, language and communication needs can use. Often young people struggling with their expressive communication in particular can find it difficult to think of what they need to say off the top of their head. However, if options are put in front of them, they can often find what they're after. This is something you might keep as it is on the table in front of the young person during the session, or cut up and place into palm cards that they can keep with them. The following is a way to present criteria or expectations for day leave. As you can see, it's for an inpatient setting in this case, and there are also visuals that help remind the young person what the expectations are, what they should and what they should not do. It's very clear.
So when working with incarcerated young people, I found that many sought parole but didn't understand what was required, because the expectations were only ever verbally provided to them by different people, and this led them to feeling frustrated, confused and impatient. I sat down with one of the unit heads one day and clarified the information that I could then put in a document that staff could use as a reference to make sure they're providing consistent information to the young person, and also present it in a way that helps the young person understand what they need to do. Here's the second page. Look at that. This next one is like an adolescent version of a social story. Carol Gray came up with this concept of social stories. And these can help a child or young person understand and manage different social situations. I wrote this particular story for a young person in prison who kept getting into trouble for involving himself in situations that didn't concern him, such as a mate being reprimanded or getting in trouble for some reason. Those without speech, language and communication needs may understand the potential problems with coming to a mate's defence, for instance, and how this could get them into trouble. However, young people with speech, language and communication needs may struggle to see the links. This visual provides a youth-friendly example that describes some of the processes we might take for granted. I say youth-friendly because often social stories are associated with young kids and they have lots of pictures and that sort of thing, but this follows the same format as a social story, just sort of without the kiddie pictures, I guess.
So this one here is something that I've modified from a book that you may have. It's quite a common one, the Dialectical Behavioural Therapy Skills Workbook by McKay, Wood and Brantley. I modified this worksheet to make it a little bit more visual. Some of the things I did were making the sentences shorter, making sure they were in active tense. I used arrows to show cause and effect, and included some of the most relevant things for my particular client at that time that I thought would be useful. And this is also from the same book. Basically what I've done here is, instead of having written long slabs of writing on one page, I've placed them into thought bubbles, and that way it just makes it a lot easier for the young person to not feel overwhelmed by all of the writing, and we can talk through them together and pick out which particular helpful thoughts or positive mantras might be useful for them. Then you can even colour them in, or if you wanted to, you could add in changes and things like that to it as well. The next one is part of a building self-awareness visual support tool that we used. This was something that we came up with using just Word and pictures from the internet, so you didn't need any fancy equipment or anything to use. But the idea is to help young people identify what things make them feel distressed or dysregulated. And from this, of course, then you can think about what helps you calm down as well by doing something similar in that sphere as well.
Okay, now we'd like to model a role play intervention for you. We'll give it a try anyway. So our young person will be played by Chantel, who will be a 16-year-old female named Amy with diagnoses of depression and anxiety, as well as borderline personality disorder traits. She has a history of suicidal ideation, but nil attempts. She has a past history of deliberate self-harm when extremely distressed, but none in the last 3 months. The school has trouble containing her, and they tend to send her home when she voices these suicidal thoughts. And one of her recent goals has been to manage her emotions at school so she can stay there. All right, here we go. And while we're doing this, we'll demonstrate some of the strategies that we've talked about. This first section will be maybe what a typical session might look like without considering the speech, language and communication needs of a young person, if they have them.
And we'll follow that up with one where we are using some of the strategies we've talked about earlier on.
So you can compare. So let's talk about what happened yesterday.
Which part?
When you were sent home after reporting some suicidal thoughts as a result of not performing as well as you would have liked to on a test.
The test was stupid.
Do you have any ideas about why the teacher sent you home?
Because they're idiots, they don't understand anything.
What do you think they should have done instead?
I don't know, like supported me?
How would you have liked them to do that?
I don't know.
How could they have supported you?
Well, not sent me home.
How did you feel when they sent you home?
I don't know.
I wonder if you felt a bit frustrated or overwhelmed.
Sure.
What could you have asked them to do instead of sending you home?
Don't know. They probably would have just sent me home anyway.
You might find it hard to believe, but the teachers really care about you and would hate to see something happen to you, especially when they have a duty of care to look after you. I wonder if maybe they could have helped by looking at your safety plan and seeing that you sometimes find a sensory tool useful to help you regulate, or that you like time to talk about your feelings and see what they can do to help you feel better and keep yourself safe. Am I on the right track?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We're now going to have a think about what thoughts, feelings and behaviour were involved.
Okay.
Let's go back to when you found out you got the C and talk about the things on each corner of our triangle. What actually happened? What were you thinking when you saw your test results?
Like, I can't believe this. My life is over.
I can't believe this. My life is over. What emotions did you feel when you saw your test result?
Upset.
Oh, yeah? Maybe disappointed, frustrated.
Yeah.
What did you do in response?
I said, my life isn't worth living, and left.
Yep. Okay. Now let's think about another way of responding that might change the outcome. What are some different and more positive thoughts you could have about your test result?
I don't know.
What about something like, I can cope, this is crap but not the end of the world?
It was crap.
Yeah. How might you feel if you had these thoughts? Maybe a bit more calm, hopeful.
Yeah.
And if you were feeling these things and thinking these things, how do you think you might have acted differently as a result?
Not said stuff.
Yeah, so maybe you could have done something to distract yourself or asking the teacher for feedback, use other strategies.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. All right. Okay. So here is an example of an alternative therapy session that sort of considers speech-language communication needs and uses some extra visuals. So let's talk about what happened yesterday.
Which part?
When you were upset about the grade you got for your test. You told the teacher your life wasn't worth living and left the classroom. The school got worried and sent you home.
Oh, well, they always overreact. I was only joking.
What do you think they should have done instead?
I don't know, like, supported me?
Can you give me some examples?
Don't know.
How about I'll say some ideas and you tell me which ones you agree with?
Okay.
You wish the teachers let you talk about your feelings, given you your sensory tool, or give you some time out for 10 minutes, then check on you?
Time out, I guess.
Cool. Let's look at all that in a different way. Okay, so let's run through what happened again. So, what happened first?
Found out I got a C.
Yep. What do you wish you got?
A plus.
Yeah, okay. How did you feel? Use this chart for ideas if you like. Can you see it there? That might be too many. Let's make it fewer.
Oh, upset.
Upset. Yep. And what did you do next?
Can't remember.
That's okay. You told the teacher life wasn't worth living, yeah?
Mm.
Mm-hmm. And then you left, yeah?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How do you think the teachers felt? Have another look at our chart if you like. What do you think?
They're probably worried.
Yeah.
You didn't need to be.
Okay. So they probably felt worried. What did they do or say?
They sent me home.
Yeah, did they send you home straight away or did they try to help first?
They wanted to help, I guess.
Yeah. So teachers might have asked you, how can we help? Something like that.
Yeah.
And how did you respond?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. And what happened then?
Stupid teacher sent me home.
Yeah. Sent Amy home. Okay. All right, we're now going to have a think about what thoughts, feelings, and behaviour were involved. So thoughts are words and pictures of the mind, things you say to yourself inside your head. We'll represent or draw your thoughts using a thought bubble, like this. Okay. When you got your test result, what thoughts went through your head? What were you thinking?
I can't cope.
Mm-hmm.
My life is ruined.
Yep. And sometimes we write words in a colour matching the emotion, but today we're going to make the bubble the colour of the emotion. So you said you felt upset.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think you felt sad upset or anxious upset?
Sad upset.
Okay, so I'm going to use blue to go over our little thought bubble. We're now going to write what you said in speech or talking bubble. Do you remember what you said?
Life's not worth living.
Yeah. And how do you think you were feeling when you said that? What emotion was behind what you said?
Upset, I guess.
Yeah. Sad?
Pretty sad, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think the teachers were thinking when you said this and left the classroom?
She should go home.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe sort of we're worried about keeping Amy safe.
Yeah.
Maybe she can't cope at school.
You can't trust her.
Yeah. I think they were probably worried about how to keep you safe at school and thought you'd cope better at home. How do you think they were feeling when they thought and said these things? Have a look at the flowchart if you like. We have talked about it.
The teachers were worried.
Yeah, so I'm going to do their thoughts and their talking in yellow, okay, to represent that they felt worried. Okay. What do you think about how the teachers reacted?
I think they overreacted. Like, they should have just trusted me.
Yep. So you might have been thinking they should trust me?
Yeah.
Yep. So what did you do?
Well, I went home. I did what they said.
Yeah. Now, how did you feel when you...
Oh, stupid teachers. They just...
Maybe a bit angry?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to do our little speech bubble in red and your thought. Because they were sort of angry thoughts, weren't they?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so let's think about a different way of responding and see what happens. So we know that you got a C. You wanted an A+, didn't you?
Yeah.
We already know that you felt upset about that.
Yeah.
Okay. Felt upset and said that life wasn't worth living. Yep. Said life not worth living. Then the teachers got worried and asked how they could help. Yep.
Yeah. So?
How can we help? I wonder what might happen if you suggested using one of your strategies instead of saying, I don't know.
Okay.
How about, give me space for 10 minutes, then check. How do you think the teachers might respond?
They'd probably like it.
I think they'd feel really relieved, maybe still a bit worried, but glad you're trying to cope yourself.
Mm.
Do you think they'd be more likely to let you stay at school?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, stay at school. So let's see how we could represent this using our thinking and talking bubbles. When you got your test result, you thought, I can't cope. Yeah. And my life is ruined. You said you felt upset, sort of sad upset.
Yep.
So we've got our little blue feelings there. And how did you respond to that? What did you say?
Life isn't worth living.
Yeah, we've already talked about that. And you said you felt sad upset. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. We talked about how we thought the teachers would feel worried and asked how they could help you. So instead of saying, I don't know, we talked about you asking them to give you space.
Yeah.
Yeah. So give me space. And what might you be thinking when you're saying this?
Do I want space?
Yeah, okay. So you might be thinking you want to try coping at school and that the teachers can trust you. Yeah?
Okay. Yeah.
They can trust me. Okay. How might you feel then?
Good, I guess.
I agree. I think you would. So I'm going to use green to say that, you know, you feel good saying, you know, that suggestion. And, yep. And then what might happen at the end of that?
They'll probably let me stay at school.
Yeah, I reckon. Okay. So to end,
I'm just de-amifying. Alright, so just to end, what's one thing that you can try this week? After all of this, you might be thinking, that's a lot of stuff to take on board. What can I try? So we'll just encourage you to pick one thing that you can try this week. It could be as simple as just slowing down your rate of speech, or using shorter sentences, or being aware of when you use jargon and trying to explain it. Once this one thing becomes automatic, add in another idea. That might be just trying to use more visuals in terms of maybe using more emotion cards or things like that. It's up to you. Take-home messages from us are that chances are you have clients that have speech, language and communication needs. A speech pathologist can help you formally identify, understand and address these specific areas of strength and difficulties. But even if speech pathology input is not available, there are strategies you can implement straight away to help meet the need of the young people on your caseload with speech, language and communication needs. So thank you very much for attending the webinar. We hope it's been really useful for you, and we look forward to perhaps working with you in the future as well.
all the best.
Thank you.